Today's episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio is brought to you by Gamers Inn, your one-stop location for all your gaming needs. Located in Lehigh City, Utah, their fun and friendly staff will be more than happy to answer any of your gaming needs. Just remember, Gamers Inn, it's where adventures begin.
Autobots, roll out! Broadcasting live from the DCR studio. Oh, yeah! The Geek Revolution starts here.
Excellent!
Get ready for the #1 hit geek radio show out there.
Well, it is impressive, isn't it?
Because it's time for Dungeon Crawlers Radio.
That's great!
Let's get ready to rumble!
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio, where Varen has been ate by a troll, regurgitated, and then a dragon swooped in and to feed him to her babies. That's right. We don't know if he's going to survive, but Mackenzie's here, and Scott's here, as well as our guest. So, you guys going to say anything?
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'm still.
Baron.
Yeah, I'm still working through that vision, that image of
I
Baron.
popped out of Scott! You're worried about Varen?
I hope none of our listeners are joining us for the first time to hear you say, I popped out of Scott!
You sneezed, and I, showed up out of your phlegm or something like that. Wasn't that a few episodes ago?
Oh, yeah, that was with Baron. Oh, yeah, I
that
remember
was a
that.
can. Like,
No,
I cracked open a can and you popped out.
No.
No, it was something worse.
Yeah.
Oh, the sneeze.
That's what happens when I get sick. So I can do whatever I want. Right?
You're a
May I
DM.
put-
That's what it comes from. That's what it comes
geez.
down to.
All right. So we have our guest, Aaron Johnston.
Yes, thank you
with
for
us.
having me. Appreciate it.
He is an amazing creator of several different things. So for those of our listeners and people, because we have a live audience right now, folks, so if you hear random noises, it is not Mackenzie farting. See? Anyways.
You've now given Mackenzie
You're
total
still
license
alive.
to fart as much as she wants, and
Yes.
no one will think it's her.
I know. That's the best part.
See, when I'm at home, I always blame the bat dog.
But I am a ginger, so I have no soul, so I'll just come back.
Wait, so you're saying they're going
You're
to blame
still on
me
my
for
list.
this? Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes. So, and Scott's here as well. So, for those of you
Who you
that
popped out
don't
of.
know who you are and what you've done, can you kind of give everyone a little taste of what you've done creatively and so on and so forth?
Sure, yeah. Again, my name is Aaron Johnston. Most recently, I was the co-creator and writer of a show called Extinct, which was on BYU television, which just finished its first season. I'm also a novelist. I write primarily with Orson Scott Card. I've been writing prequel novels to Ender's Game for several years now. I'm finishing book 5 of a prequel series to Ender's Game. I also occasionally write comics for Marvel or EA Comics. So, yeah, that's me.
Okay, so Scott's interest is perked up. It's like, Marvel?
I'm just always impressed by every author that we meet that actually, because I like. I don't even know if I can even say I officially dabble in writing, but to be able to make writing your such a career like you have, I mean, to be able to say Marvel, Ender's Game, like it feels like you've just kind of taken a lot of our childhoods and like dove into it. Like, yeah, that's a childhood memory. That's awesome. I'm gonna make that my life. I'm gonna make that my career. And like that's like just the passion of so much of us. That's like a dream. That's a dream job right there, right?
Yes. When I can make full money at my writing, that will be awesome.
That's just incredible. I mean, how did you get started into all this?
Well, my first career was writing advertising, actually. I was a copywriter in advertising, which means I wrote radio commercials and TV commercials and websites and prints and billboards and all kinds of things. I'd actually studied, I started to study film at college. And then we had this film symposium class where all these professionals from the industry came and they said, don't go into film. Whatever you do, don't pursue this as a career because you'll go hungry and your family will be on welfare. And so that was discouraging. So I said, well, I really do like to write. I like being creative, but I also like having a steady income. So I began to investigate what other career options there were, and I discovered copywriting, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and was actually really good education for me as I pursued other things like comic writing or television writing, because they are skills I think that I learned in advertising that were truly helpful to me once I started writing in other media. Simply because you have to understand, things I hadn't really considered when I was, studying film. You have to know your audience. You have to know what your audience sounds like, what's appealing to them. Working in advertising really helped me think strategically, right? Because you have to in advertising, or you'll insult your demographic, or you'll talk over your demographic. So writing copy in advertising was my first career. I did that for 11 years. And then I actually, my career now was pretty much an accident because I was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, working for an ad agency there. And I had done theater in college, and so had my wife. And we happened to be in the same church congregation as Orson Scott Card, whose first love was actually theater. He was a playwright before he was a novelist. Most people don't know that. But he quickly learned that it's very hard to make a living as a playwright. Yeah. But he still loves theater, and so he actually finances his own theatrical productions in Greensboro. He puts them on for the community. He does it for free of charge. Just because he loves that experience. So he heard that my wife and I dabbled in theater. He said, oh, well, you should come. We're going to do The Importance of Being Earnest. You should come do that for us. We didn't have any kids at the time, and we thought, okay, sure, why not? So that's how I met.
When Scott Card asks you to be in a play, you say yes?
Sure, why not? Yes. Yeah, even if I hadn't done theater, yes, yeah. So then as I got to know him, he learned that I had studied film in school, and at the time there was it was called Dog Walker. It was a short story that he had written decades ago. It was being adapted in L.A. The writer had written a draft. It was a good draft. It needed a rewrite. The writer wasn't available. And so Scott says to me, hey, look, I got this thing, and you said that you studied film screenwriting at school. You want to do a rewrite of this, and I'll pay you? And I'm like, you don't even have to pay me. But yes, you can pay me. So I did a draft of Dog Walker, which I had never actually written a full feature-length screenplay before. Yeah. At school, I'd written scenes and stuff, but never a feature. And so I did that, and that was 15 years ago, and we've been doing many, many things ever since.
Cool.
So that's my story. So it's quite honestly, it's not fair. Any success I have is totally unjust because anyone in this industry knows it is rough and tumble. Oh, yeah. I mean, it is very, very difficult to break into publishing. It's very, very difficult to break into film. It's very, very difficult to break into television. It's very, very difficult to break into comics. And because I always had Orson Scott Card with me, doors always opened for me. Now, when he asked me to start writing indie novels, I was really anxious and nervous about that because fans want what fans want, right? Yeah. and if you destroy a universe, or if you
get rid of canon,
yeah, exactly right. If you go against
Disney.
What's been canonized, you will be crucified. And so I was really a little anxious about doing that, but fans have been extremely generous and very kind and very supportive. Just because I think they're good, nice people. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, even though it is hard, but there is that amount of luck that sometimes comes in. Where you have that success, you have to wait for those moments of luck and pounce on them, which you did. I mean,
I was going to say, I do want to say, yes, you did have that moment of luck, and I'm sure a lot of us.
Then you also have the talent.
Are like, oh, I wish, but you had. That just means you got off. You were able to leap off the cliff. You had the talent to be able to catch that draft and be able to still move forward. Well, yes, you got in, but then it was your talent that kept going.
I think, well, that's nice of you to say. I mean, if it had been abysmal, right?
Yeah.
I think it would have ended
for this
there.
rewrite. Can you rewrite it this time?
But thanks now, go away. But I honestly think, though, I haven't read it in a decade, but probably if I went back and read that screenplay, I would probably think it is abysmal because I think I'm a much better writer than I am now than I was then. But Scott is very gracious. He's very generous, and I think one of the reasons why people love his novels and his work so much is because so much of who he is as a person is reflected in his characters, right? I mean, honestly, when anyone reads Ender's Game, they're like, "Oh, I'm Ender. This is me. I love this book. I resonate with this character so much," right? But and it's true because we see ourselves in the characters with which we would develop a relationship. But Ender really is Scott Card. I mean, he is the most brilliant human being I've ever met. If you go to dinner with Scott Card, you don't say anything because it's like watching an episode off the History Channel. He knows everything about everything. If you ask him about anything, he can give you a lecture on it. Not that he's lecturing to you, but just that he's having conversation. Oh yes, well yes, French colonization or whatever. I mean, he can talk about anything because he knows everything. It's been. I have the utmost respect for him as an author because I've followed him my whole life, but also as a human being. He's just a kind, generous, good man.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to follow up on what you're saying, you don't want to go back and read what you wrote a while back because as you progress as a writer, you get better and better, and of course, it's going to look abysmal from where you're at this standpoint.
Sure.
And I think it was Scott Card that did say that. I don't go back and read my stuff because the person I am now will edit that because it's not good compared to my standards now.
Yeah, and I've noticed that when actually as we've been writing the Ender's Game prequels, and I'm trying to be sensitive to what's been canonized. I'll ask Scott, like, so how did this happen, or what was this event? He's like, I don't remember, I don't know. You read the book, tell me, I don't know what's in it. Yeah. Because he's simply moved on. He wrote Ender's Game, and it's in the past, and he can't tell me what the events are. And so I really have to do a lot of research and reread the books and refamiliarize myself because he's long forgotten.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there. When you go to an author and say, oh man, this one scene with this one character, you did this, why? They don't know. They literally don't know because that was, 2-3 years ago? Maybe, well, in case of like Tracy Hickman or Bob Salvatore, a decade or more ago?
Yeah.
They don't remember.
When
They're
did
on their
Ender's
new...
Game come
Ender's
out?
Game was
It was
1980 something, early 80s.
Oh, pre-me.
It initially was a short story,
Yeah.
And then it became a novel later.
Yeah.
But
the movie's out and it has Harrison Ford in it.
Yep. And I'm actually in the movie as well.
You're in the movie too.
I was an associate producer in the movie, and so they let me be an extra in the movie.
Ooh, did you die?
I did not die, sadly. I wish I had.
What question is that?
I'm in the scene, actually, if you've seen the movie, it's at the end when Ender is actually conducting the final battle.
Yeah.
And behind him, up in this little observation room, there's Harrison Ford and Sir Ben Kingsley. So I'm an officer of the fleet. I'm up there. And when the director of photography came up to set up the camera for the coverage up there for the guys, I'm at the end. And he's looking at everyone. He looks at Harrison. He looks at Sir Ben Kingsley, and then he looks at me, and he's like, "Can we throw some shadow on that guy?" Referring to me, because he's like, "I'm getting too much of him." I was not offended in the least bit. So, but yes,
stand in the same room as Harrison Ford for crying out loud.
you really.
I don't care how old that man is. I still love him.
Yeah.
Shadow me all you want, as long as I'm next to him. Yeah.
He's not as I mean, this is so cliche. He's not as tall as you would think he is.
I'm sure
but he's enormously gracious, very kind, very generous. He, as someone who was raised on Indiana Jones and Han Solo, to meet him was, just a thrill of my life. And
she'd pass out.
Oh yeah, that's accurate.
He was as delightful as I wanted him to be.
After I cried.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I tried very hard, not to cry, and successfully.
I didn't cry. Chris Evans, though, does that count for something?
No, you just had him kiss you.
I was a little starstruck.
Yeah.
I didn't pass out.
You had Chris Evans kiss you, and he actually kissed you?
No.
Oh.
But I did have Elijah Wood ride me.
I won't even ask any follow-up questions.
You have to clarify a little bit on that one.
We had a photo. He jumped on her back for a piggyback ride.
For those of you watching, it was a piggyback ride.
Isn't it on the Instagram?
Yeah. That's so awesome. You just threw that out there.
Well, so many times people say,
I don't know what to say at the moment.
You should never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
People say that, because you're always going to be disappointed. In the case of Elijah Wood and Harrison Ford, that was not the case.
No, it wasn't the case.
If it means anything, that's also the case in the case of Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, very gracious, and he'll
Yeah.
give you liquor. Like, it's great.
Oh, cool.
That is
Hello,
not
good to meet you.
surprising.
Here's some Crystal Head vodka.
Wait, who's Dan Aykroyd again?
Ghostbuster.
Oh, goodness.
Conehead.
Oh, okay, Coneheads.
There we go.
Coneheads.
I think you might not be able to come on the show for a few more weeks after that one. Who's Dan Aykroyd?
You have to give me some. Remember, I fell asleep in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that anymore.
The original Ghostbusters or
Yes.
like the reboot?
So that's another thing we're doing. Since there's a lot of movies she hasn't seen, we're going back and doing reviews of old movies. Us viewing it from nostalgia's sake, her reviewing it from I've never seen this sake. Ghostbusters didn't do very well with her.
Wait,
Yes.
falls asleep?
She fell asleep during.
She fell asleep.
Yeah.
It was 2
Ghostbusters.
snores instead of 2 snorts.
Rewatch it and it counts as her first time? Or
No, we just let her review it. It didn't do very well in her mind.
She fell asleep during the "she's
What
a
did you
dog"
say?
line. Like she's
But
suffering enough.
you want to know what the revenge is? She gets to watch Killer Clowns from Space.
Yes, that is the next one that we're
And she's
reviewing,
afraid of
and we're really
clowns.
excited about
I
that.
hate you so much
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's natural to fall asleep in a movie if you're exhausted, right?
Yes.
If you weren't exhausted and you were bored, then that
was
is.
I was bored.
She was bored.
Okay, never mind that.
Yeah.
No, what did they say? They said I gave it 2 snores instead of 2
Yeah, 2
snorts.
snort. Yeah, 2 snores.
Yes, it's a gradual slow. It's a sloping scale of snort to snore. And
Yeah.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if you haven't really been exposed to those guys, you know,
Yeah.
because those of us who were kind of raised, we had an affinity already
Oh, yeah.
for the Ghostbusters,
See, and
right? We
that's
felt a
kind of
connection to them.
what we
right?
talked about. He hyped me up on it, and then I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, if they're all
That is one of the
strangers to
downsides.
you, that's like when I try to watch a comedy these days. So many people, I'm like, I don't know who that is. I'm not that cool. I'm too old, and so I'm bored. So I can see why you might have tuned out of Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Though I will never forgive you for it.
You're not the first, and I doubt you'll be the last. Are you kidding me? I'm getting hate at work for it.
Well, I mean, the first time when I was in advertising, the first time I actually recognized that I was old was when I was working with an account executive who said to me, "But wait, what is Indiana Jones?" She did not know what Indiana Jones was.
She at least knows Indiana Jones.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
Indiana Jones.
She knows Star Wars. We're
Sure,
good
Back
there.
to the Future.
Yeah, okay.
I do love Back to the Future.
She'll probably get maybe half the references in Ready Player One, but we're good.
What's Ready Player One?
Mackenzie is our I don't even know.
Please
how-
turn her
You're
mic
millennial.
off.
She keeps us feeling old.
She's a millennial.
She's succeeding.
I'm a millennial. Sorry.
Luckily, she doesn't like the prequels.
Ew!
No one likes the prequel.
Some
Oh,
people
no, we
do,
can
actually.
argue
No,
that
some
because
people
No,
do.
some
like
people
the
do.
prequels.
There are some people that do.
There is a former
We
member
don't
of the
talk
podcast.
about them.
We don't.
No.
Clone Wars, though. Clone Wars. And I will fight anybody who doesn't like Clone Wars.
Okay.
It's on.
The animated show,
Yes,
not the event.
animated.
Yeah.
No, the movie's terrible.
Yeah.
But Yoda's fight scene is awesome.
You're talking about Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
But I miss the puppet.
Everybody misses the puppet. That's why the puppet came back. Spoiler: Last Jedi. If
Yes.
anybody hasn't seen it,
Oh,
So-
come on.
if
it's
you haven't
been
seen
out
it at
for-
this point, it's your own fault.
So, what got you into writing? I mean, because you got to the advertising, you got the magic window
Yeah.
with Scott. What was, when was it? Because it had to happen sometime when you were a kid or growing up, that spark, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, so when I was in, the 7th grade, there was this writing competition, and I had really never even written a short story before. So it was it was an assignment, really. It was the teacher that everyone has to write a story, and so I did, and I was really excited about my story. I don't even remember what the story was. All I know, though, is that I wrote a story, but then I also actually drew the principal character, who had like wings on his. He was a knight. He had like wings on his helmet and this magical sword. I mean, it was everything that a 7th grader would put into a short story, right? So then I found out actually that she took all the stories and she submitted them into a competition.
Oh, wow.
Unbeknownst to us. And I won the competition. I got to read my story on the radio. No one heard it. It was on some public access radio show, right? But I thought, wow, I created something that someone actually might hear and listen to and gain some enjoyment out of. And as a result of that, I started to make my own little movies, as probably many of us did when we were kids, you know, with our little VHS cameras. And that we would script ourselves, and we would enlist our neighbor kids, and
I don't
we
know
would
if
enlist
I'd
our
call
siblings.
them little. They were pretty big.
So I'd
not
always
like a GoPro.
No. No.
Yeah, so as a result of that, I always wanted to pursue screenwriting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I initially, again, studied in college until I was told by everyone else in the industry that was a stupid idea. But I ended up getting to do that later, and I find it very fulfilling.
Yeah. No, I had a very similar start. You know, in school, I had to writing. I drew the character and all that.
Sure.
Except for mine was a tiger and how tigers got their stripes because we had to read them for the third graders.
Oh, cool.
So it was really cool, and they were excited about it. I was really excited. And I got some, you'll never make money. Don't do it. That's what I was told. I didn't, instead of you still kind of pursuing that, I decided to get a degree in IT, which is, no. It's boring. It wasn't for me. I love being creative.
Yeah.
But at least you can create on the side.
I did finally come back.
You can feed your family, which is really nice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You like feeding your family.
It's good to feed them because otherwise you'll start gnawing on my leg. Yeah.
You can fix things probably beyond turn it off and then back on again.
Do they turn?
Just watch the IT crowd. It tells you everything you ever need to know. Yeah. Have you power cycled it?
I have seen that.
Yeah. And it is not a coffee cup holder. And when you need to click on the screen, please don't pick up your mouse and tap on the screen.
Please tell me you actually get calls like this.
I did have a call like that.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Is it plugged in?
Yeah.
I've done customer service. You do get calls like
Yeah.
that.
My personal favorite.
There's a reason I don't do IT anymore.
My personal favorite. I was using my personal mouse at work, but it wasn't connected to my computer.
Quit talking. You're just making it worse for yourself.
I'm sorry, you were using your personal mouse, but it wasn't connected to
Why
it.
did you plug it in?
I had my laptop at work, and I got a phone call. I worked in a call center, and I was, trying to wake up my computer. But it was the wrong mouse.
No, that mistake is easy to make.
No.
It's not like a one does not know how to copy and paste.
Okay, but you didn't actually call someone. I mean, you figured it out.
No, they called me, and I was trying to wake up the computer to help them.
I'm sorry, I want to help you with your computer need, but I have a computer need of my own. Please hold.
No, then I looked at it, I'm like, oh wait, that's the wrong color.
One moment, I need to call the help desk. I'll be right back with you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course it's not your problem. It is so advanced. I'm glad you called us, because even I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So, what was it? Okay, so we had the books with him. You've done comics, which, I mean, doing stuff for Marvel is just amazing. I mean,
what do you do for Marvel? I want to know I want to know where to find you.
So
I want to go find the comic.
Yeah, so I've done the most recent thing I did is called Formic Wars. This is what we transformed into some novels. Mm-hmm. It's essentially they are prequel to Ender's Game.
Okay.
So and I also did various adaptations for Marvel. So yeah, the great thing about writing comics is you get to work with some pretty amazing people. Artists who are just have incredible talent. The editors at Marvel are very generous, very, very smart story-wise. And really, that's the lesson that I give everyone, is if you want to be successful, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and more talented than you, and cling to them for as long as you can. That's what I've done my entire career, even on our most recent show, Extinct. As we just found an incredible cast. We assembled a really gifted crew. We had some very gifted directors. And when you associate yourself with really talented people, they make you look really good.
And that's why we work. No,
Why'd you look at me?
That's the truth. When you have the talented people around you, it just makes you look better. You make them look better.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It's a great circle of life, I guess, in a way.
That's why I like working with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting a warm feeling.
You want to know what the best part is?
I was going to try to make fun of them, and then everybody started going, "Oh, now I can't do it. Like I just can't."
All right. Anyways,
and it's over.
So what is? I mean, so you've done the comic medium, you've done the book medium,
He's done the
film
TV
medium. I mean, TV and film. You've kind of been everywhere. I mean, you're almost the Renaissance guy of creativity in a way. What is next? I mean, what can you... video games? Or have you already done that?
No, I'm actually not a gamer. I've never been a gamer.
So that's not even in the interest.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was the kid that didn't have a Nintendo. So I just never got into games.
Okay.
So, my sons aren't that big. I mean, we have an Xbox 360, but they rarely use it. We're just not big gamers. But right now I'm developing another show.
Okay.
And I'm
do tell.
So it's another show for BYU TV that I'm developing right now. We'll see. In television, it's the process is you pitch an idea. They say, "Oh, we like this idea. Give us more." You flesh out the idea a little bit more. They say, "Oh, we really like this, how you flesh it out. Now we're going to pay you to write a pilot script." Okay. They pay you to write a pilot script. You write the pilot script. "Oh, we really like the script. We're going to pay you to produce the pilot." You produce the pilot. "Oh, we really like what you did in production. Now we're going to order more episodes."
Okay.
And so television is a series of hurdles. At any moment, you can trip over a hurdle, or they can call off the race entirely.
Yeah.
So I'm probably at hurdle 4 at this point. Whether or not this thing will ever come to light of day, I don't know, but that's just the nature of the business.
Yeah, and I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of TV shows that never make the light of day.
Absolutely, yeah.
There are even movies.
Yeah, and there are many, many screenwriters who have productive careers, who make good income, and who never get anything produced, right? Yeah. Because they do rewrites, they do drafts, they turn them in, and for whatever reason, just because in this business there are so many aspects of film and television that are beyond your control.
Yeah.
That you can't influence, despite your talent, despite your efforts, despite the sun and the zodiac.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that just happen, because so and so has a nephew that wants to do a show. Okay, now we're going to do that show.
Yeah.
Right, says an executive, for example. So there's just things you can't control. You just have to be. You have to diversify your career, which is what I try to do. Just to get as many irons in the fire as you can, and hopefully pay your mortgage and feed your kids.
Yeah. So, I mean, that brings up a good question, at least in my mind. How do you overcome that perceived failure? I mean, because you're really not failing because you don't have that choice.
Yeah.
If you write a book, it's awesome, it's out there, it's published, but it doesn't. No one reads it, doesn't succeed. It's not really a failure because you succeeded in accomplishing that. But how do you overcome that in your? Because you kind of feel down, and that sucks. How do you pick yourself back up?
Yeah. So I mean, it's. I mean, the whole tortured artist is kind of cliche, but I think there is some truth to it because we have to censor ourselves. We have to edit ourselves. We have to. I mean, so much of I discover when I write a novel, 80 to 85% of the time dedicated to writing a novel is dedicated to writing the first 2 chapters. After that, the novel can proceed at a brisk clip, and I can finish the novel pretty quickly. But I spend so much time writing those first couple chapters because I know it's not there yet, and it's extremely frustrating. And I constantly tell my wife, I should have been a farmer. I should have been a mailman. I should have done something that, I just clock in every day, and I move this widget, right? And I can understand that. But if you want to expect people to give their hard-earned money for something you create, you really, really, really have to be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
You really have to have a thick skin, and you have to be willing to throw it all away because you know it's not good enough. So you're in that constant state of editing yourself and evaluating what you've created, and you're inevitably going to create something that isn't good enough, right? That's just part of the process, and that will bring you down a little bit unless you cling to some belief that eventually, in the process, you're going to create something that's worth keeping.
Cool. All right. Well, we are out of time, folks. So, real quickly before we leave, where can people find you? Whether you're at conventions, you have a website.
Sure.
Where can they find the books that you're co-writing with Scott?
Yep.
And go for them.
So my website is aaronwjohnston.com. My name is William. aaronwjohnston.com. I'm on Twitter at Aaron W. Johnston. So you can find Extinct. You can still stream it. You can still watch it at byutv.org or extinct.tv. And just watch BYU TV. Maybe I'll get over some more hurdles. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. So with that said, guys, check out Extinct. Check out Ender's Game. It's a fantastic book. See what else Aaron has out there available, and support your artists. I mean, that's the name of the game. They're not feeding their kids without you. And
well, think about how much we wouldn't have if we didn't have artists that were actually able to make the sacrifice, willing to make that sacrifice.
Would you ever have
no
heard
Star
of
Wars.
Shakespeare?
No Shakespeare.
Star Wars.
No Ender's Game at all. Like
no crazy clowns from space or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Killer clowns from space.
Killer clowns from space. Yes, sorry.
I have 14 clown movies you get to watch soon.
Let's just start with Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
With that said, we'll catch you next time.
And from LTUE.
I hate you so much right now.
Bye.
You're listening to Dungeon Crawlers Radio. Please subscribe and follow them on Facebook or Twitter, precious. No, we're even promoting these filthy idiots who doesn't like them, who doesn't like anyone. No, they're our friends, precious, our friends. No, shut up. Please subscribe.